Hey, everybody. Thanks for coming out tonight. This is Paul Evans and
Al Milligren
from teenlifeministries.com. We're so excited that you were able to come out. This is being recorded. For those of you who are not able to make it or you made it late, then you will be able to get the entire replay. We're going to be covering a pretty good bit of information tonight, but what we're going to do as well is to begin a series of webinars. Like this one really focuses on youth. Al and I were talking just a few minutes ago about doing one that really focuses on the youth minister and how to strengthen ourselves spiritually. We're also going to be doing a series of webinars, or at least I will, on teaching. And then Al's going to do a series of webinars on counseling. Al doesn't like to talk about this, but I don't mind talking about it. He has a PhD in family studies. He's been doing counseling for years and years. Actually, how many years, Al?
31 years in youth ministry and counseling.
Woo, 31 years. I'm barely that old myself at 46. Al and I, some of you know our story. Al and I have kind of grown up together. At age 12, I entered Al's youth group. He was my youth minister. I went on to enter youth ministry myself, and now combined, we've had about 50 years of youth ministry experience. So we love it. We love the work of God in youth. And as we get started tonight, Al, what do you think are some reasons why youth ministry is still important today?
Well, a lot of kids today don't have the home environment that we used to have is one reason, and another reason is it gives an opportunity for kids to be around their peers, have fun as Christians. You know, in youth ministry, you can just have fun. You don't. It's not all heart strokes all the time, but we can have fun being youth ministers and youth ministry, and the kids can have fun being with their peers and learn about God at the same time.
Yeah, actually, I get the opportunity sometimes to be around some of our elderly folks at church. Not that I've entered that realm yet, but they talk a lot about the difference in today's society and even 20 years ago, but certainly for them about 50 years ago. And so I feel like youth ministry is even more critical today just because of all the new pressures, all the new technology, all the new opportunities that Satan has to enter the hearts of teens.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, Paul. Technology has really taken over the younger generation and our older generation, like myself. Sometimes we don't understand all that, and they do. Sometimes it's very harmful for them, and sometimes it's good. All technology is not bad. There have been a lot of people being reached spiritually by technology, so it's not all bad, but some of it is, and we have to be on the up and up with them about that.
Yeah, the key is just make sure we're leveraging it in a positive way. So tonight we are here to talk about back to school CPR, and we're going to actually use those letters at the very end of the webinar to talk about what CPR actually stands for as it relates to ministry. But we've got several things that we want to discuss tonight just because it allows us to anchor in the knowledge of some of the traps, some of the downfalls that are coming in the way of teens, and then also some positive things that we can do as well. So as we get started, we want to look at two traps of school busy. As school starts back, kids go from this relaxed sleeping in, a lot of them doing what they want when they want, to suddenly hitting the ground from 6 a.m. to sometimes 8, 9 p.m. at night with a constant flurry of activities. One of the big things that happens right out of the gate spiritually with a lot of teens is just that they stall. They end up not doing their Bible readings. They end up not praying, skipping prayer groups, skipping a youth group simply because they're just so busy with everything going on today.
That's right. All summer long, we've had them at our disposal, and they're constantly in Bible studies or at camps or mission trips or just youth trips, youth functions around your church. And so they're constantly with us, and they're gaining a lot from it, hopefully. But when they go back to school, then it's a different thing. Then they got to jump into a different set of books. They're out of the Bible into textbooks. And so that's a stall for them. It's a stall for us as well. And so we need to be on our toes to help them through that.
Yeah, and I love one of the things that we supply inside teenlifeministries.com is the daily Bible reading so that every month they can take that. You can remind the teens, they are going to stall at the very beginning. It's not that we are going to be able to prevent all of that, but what we need to do is to be there, to be available, have the tools and resources for them to get them restarted. Because if we're not using a resource like daily Bible reading, they move from stalling into being stuck. And once they get stuck, then they start feeling like there's no use. There's no use going back to youth group. There's no use reading the Bible. There's no use praying, because they get locked into these friendships that are involved in, or sports or academics. And suddenly they feel like their wheels are just spinning. Their life's a little bit out of control, and they start to feel a little bit helpless. And I know through the years, Al, we've had so many kids that felt like they were stuck and they really couldn't make their way back. But we always encourage them to get back and to get involved.
Right. And another thing as well, they become spiritually complacent.
Mm.
They've reached a spiritual level during the summer, and they hopefully they think that that will sustain them through the school year. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But they become complacent with their spirituality, thinking that they can, kind of put God on the shelf for a while and go do their things, which it's okay for them to go do their things, but they need to take God with them.
Yeah, I love that. You're right. They do become complacent, and sometimes it's not that they're forcefully leaving God. They just kind of drift
Right.
away. So that's what stalling is about, and that's what happens when they get stuck. It's not that they have these all the time have these rebellious
Right.
intentions, but sometimes it just happens
And
along the way.
unfortunately, sometimes they don't even realize it's happening.
That's a great point. You're right. We also want to look at two looming dangers, and we want to take aim at what's going on in their life. And two looming dangers we need to look at. Number one is their desires. And this is something that's so interesting in Scripture in 1 Corinthians chapter 7, when Paul is actually writing about marriage. And he says, I wish nobody would get married because I want them to be like me. I can be devoted to the Lord. But once you get married, your devotion is then diluted, because the wife is trying to please the husband trying to please the wife. Well, the same thing happens in school, that our desire as teens can be, not as it, sometimes with desire, we think about sexual desire, but sometimes it's just simply acceptance.
That's right. That's right. Teens need acceptance. They want acceptance, and they'll do what it takes to be accepted. Some try it in sports, some try it in band, cheering, friendships, whatever. Most all teens that I've ever dealt with wants to have some kind of acceptance, and so they have to be careful of where they do that, and we have to be on the aware that they're doing that, so we can help them with those desires. Like I said, it's natural. It's natural. God made us to be sexual people, so it's natural for them to have sexual desires. It's natural for them to want to use their gifts, whether it's sports or whatever that God gifted them with. But they also got to stay focused on God and remember that He's the one that gave them those gifts.
Yeah, we've got to help the teens recognize the things that pull them away, as James 1 talks about, that each one of us is drawn away by our own lust and enticed. Mm-hmm. And so our work as youth ministers can really help them locate their areas of temptation. Right. It's well known that, and this is a very shallow example, it's well known that I don't eat casseroles. So if anybody comes in the house with a casserole, there's no temptation. But somebody comes in with a boatload of bacon, it's gone.
I was about to say bacon would be at the top of the list.
It's at the top. So likewise in our lives, and as youth workers in the lives of teens, we've got to recognize what those desires are. Whether it's sexual, whether it is acceptance, whether it's fitting in, whether it's wanting to be the top person, even if it's a competitive role. So we've always got to be on the lookout for that. And if we're not careful, another danger that looms is just being derailed, just getting so far off the track that it's different from being stuck. When we're stuck, we feel like, well, maybe, there's not use going back, but we can still see back. When we're derailed, we feel like there's no hope in getting back, that we've done so much wrong or we've gone so far away that we can't return.
We were talking about that in our life group last night. Was talking about being derailed and feel like we're not good enough to come back, or God won't accept us back. And how many times can we ask for forgiveness? And the truth is, after we ask Him the first time, He doesn't know what we're talking about when we ask Him the second time. But we sometimes can't turn it loose as adults, and kids certainly can't turn it loose. They've done some things that we would consider major sins, maybe. And they say, there's no hope. There's no hope for me coming back. God is not going to accept me. And we've got to help them understand that God is a good God. Now, God is a just God, but God is a good God, and He will accept them back.
Yeah, I think that's critical. Because if we're not looking at that spirit of grace and that spirit of acceptance and that spirit of love, then they are going to have that constant feeling of, I can't come back. One of my favorite passages is where it says that Christ gave himself for the ungodly at just the right time, that while we were yet sinners, he died. So while we're in the process of sinning, that was the moment that he died.
And this is a good opportunity for our teens to be able to minister too, because there are some kids that feel like they can't come back because of other teens. They don't feel like they will be accepted by the other teens if they try to come back. If they've done something that's really really bad in the eyes of the youth group, they'll feel like, well, I can't come back. There's no hope.
And that's a tough situation too, because teens do talk about other teens, and they do recognize the wrongs, and they do recognize the sins, and they do end up talking about that and broadcasting that. And so we've got to work too as youth ministers to make sure that when a teen is trying to make that return, trying to get back on track, that we are leading the way, that we're providing the avenue that makes it easy for them.
So we also got an opportunity for two sources to grow here: the person coming back and the person that's doing the accepting. And so the teens, both parties win in this situation.
I love that. Good point, Al. Three characteristics of strong teen believers. So as we are looking to make sure that teens stay on track as they get back in school and they are staying strong, we need to rely on the teens who are strong leaders in our group to make sure that they are doing what they need to do, leading the way. So here are just three characteristics. And I believe inside Teen Life, Al, we've got, as part of our 10 by 50, 10 by 52, we've got a lot of list of teens in there, and we do have 10 traits of strong leadership teens. So guys, make sure that you go into the membership zone and search for those traits of teen leaders and get that list as well. Number one, strong teen believers are determined, that they want to be strong in the Lord, that they desire this, that they pursue this. It's not something they are expecting to happen. It's something that they're engaged in and they're taking an active role in.
I can't tell you how many times I've asked this question in class, even down to fifth and sixth grade students. Tell me somebody you know of that's spiritually determined. And whether we like this or not, Tim Tebow comes to the top of the list of somebody says, it does not matter what I'm involved in. I am determined to be the best Christian I can be where I am. And that's another thing of a strong Christian teen, is that they're determined to do that. They make up their mind. They plan ahead, they pray ahead, and they make it happen.
You think about the number of things in our lives that we are determined to do. We think about those who decide to set a goal and they pursue it, and teens that have to show up for school at a certain time and they show up, have to show up for band practice at a certain time and they show up. They're determined to do that because it is now an obligation. And those strong teens who are determined to be spiritual and to have a God-led life, then this is an area that is not optional for them.
Right.
It's an obligation for them. It becomes their life. It's not simply an addition.
And the good part about some of the teens that are determined, or one of the good parts about that is, Paul, is that I've known adults, probably me being one of them, who don't really become determined until they go through the young adult years, and they go through and they get a little maturity on them, and then they decide, I'm going to really be determined and be a strong Christian. Which a lot of times we just play church, but there are a lot of young teens that are really, really determined, and they're going after it. And we as youth workers should be really, really proud and using those kids to further his kingdom.
Yeah, I love that. One of the things that Al always did for me growing up, and a lot of the kids in the youth group, is provided us opportunities to serve, opportunities to lead. There were so many times when we were the ones doing the devotionals. We were the ones that were calling on other kids. We were the ones bringing the encouragement. And it was because I had youth ministers like Al who were willing to let the kids lead. And we've got to take that role as well as youth leaders to make sure that our teen leaders get that opportunity. Because if they are determined and they never get the chance, that will be a great discouragement to them. You think about Jesus and the 12. When he sent them out, I would not call them ready, but he sent them out and allowed them to go out with power and to come back and report. And he said that he saw the heavens opening up. And it's so amazing, that positive feedback, that when Christ allowed them to go out and be determined and take that leadership role, they came back more excited and stronger than ever.
Yeah, sometimes we send kids out, we worry about them making a mistake, or if they're doing the devotion, if they're leading singing, they pitch them too high or too low or whatever, who knows. But we can't worry about them. We can't worry about them making mistakes. We learn from our mistakes. They learn from their mistakes, and we move on, do a better job the next time.
Absolutely. All right. The second trait is that they are dedicated. We've hit this just a little bit, but with saying that kids will show up for school. You know, we got football on the screen here. They are going to show up for football. But I want to give you an example from Stephen, my youngest. Sam's the oldest. Youngest, who just went to college. He played football his senior year of high school. And on the last game, the next Saturday morning, that was Friday night, Saturday morning, they had to meet for the video. But the seniors didn't have to go. Only the juniors had to go, who are going to be playing the next year. Well, Stephen went anyway. I was like, Stephen, you don't even have to go. Why in the world are you going to watch that game video? You want to sleep in. You're finished with your football career. He said, because Dad, those other guys need me. You know, they need me to be there. They need that presence there. See, he was dedicated to the team. He wasn't simply dedicated to Stephen. He wasn't simply dedicated to what he wanted to do. He was dedicated to the whole team. And that's what happens with teens who are really strong leaders. They're dedicated to the whole youth group.
And, you know, Paul, another thing that we need to be aware of and watch out for, too, as far as this dedication part goes, when we're in class or we're on a trip, we're on a retreat, camp, or whatever, sometimes there are teens that we might call fringe kids. They're over there. They're not taking part a whole lot, but they're just there. But you know what? They're at everything. And if we encourage them, they would become more and more dedicated. They're already dedicated. We just gotta make the dedication head towards the right thing.
I love that. Strong. Number 3 is directed. That these guys want to be led. They not only want to get out there and lead, they're not only determined, they're not only dedicated, but they want to be directed. They want us to come alongside them as leaders, provide the opportunities like we mentioned earlier, but also provide resources so that we may be emailing them a quiet time or sudden impact out of teenlifeministries.com. And we're making sure that they have the tools, the resources to stay strong, that we challenge them, that we go after them in their life and say, hey, we're checking on you. Want to make sure that you're doing all right. Want to make sure that your walk is strong. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more in a few minutes in the next section. But these kids really want you to challenge them.
They want you to set the bar high. I've not seen very many teens. If you set the bar for them, they will try to reach it. If you really encourage them, pat them on the back, hug them, show them the love of Jesus, and challenge them, raise the expectation bar, expect them to do certain things, expect them to be certain places and act certain ways. And when you do that, most of the time they'll reach the bar.
Yeah, that's a great point, because sometimes we're worried about those fringe kids, that we're going to do something that might hurt their feelings or might send them off, or they might not ever come back to church. Well, the opposite is true for the leader. If we're not challenging them, if we're not setting that bar high, they may go somewhere else where they feel like they can lead, where they get the opportunity. So let's lean on them, let's depend on them, and let's direct them so that when they get back into school, we can help them be a leader at school and not just at church.
Good point. Good point.
All right, 3 heartbeats of youth ministry. This is for us as youth leaders to make sure that we're doing the job that we need to do, limiting it to 3. Number 1 is to assist. We want to always be available to the youth to make sure that they know that we're there. They know that we're present. They know that we are available. If they want to stop by in the afternoon, if they want to call, if they want to text. Now, Al's background obviously is counseling as well. So talk to us a few minutes just about setting the correct boundaries as we want to be available for teens.
Well, you know, there are certain boundaries that we have to be aware of in our society when it comes to meeting with teens or assisting with teens. We certainly don't want to meet with a teen in a closed office with no windows or or you want to have your door open, you stay on one side of your desk, or either walk outside in the parking lot or in a park or wherever close by. I mean, I hate to say that we have to do these things, but we do. We really do. It's something that for our safety and for their safety, it goes back to a he said, she said type thing. So, but we need to assist them in their walk with the Lord. We need to be there for them, not do it for them, but assist them in what they're trying to do, and allow them, as we assist, allow them to make healthy mistakes. Healthy failure is good. Now, as we assist, we got to be aware that we don't want to assist them in making mistakes that's going to be life-changing mistakes in a negative way. But things that will be healthy for them to fail at, that is a way of assisting. Asking them to get up and do a devotional, if they don't make a very good devotional talk, that's okay. We assist them in doing that and doing it better next time.
Love that. Guys, we just got to make sure that we're keeping those boundaries in place, that we are assisting them in proper way, that
Right.
we're up front and out front with everything. Even the simple things like keeping our blinds open in our office or always meeting in public places, things along those lines, like Al's telling us. And that's a big key for them knowing too, that we're just available for them, that they do have someone that they can talk to, someone that they can trust. One caution is to make sure that they know that unless it's truly confidential, that you care about them and you care about their parents.
Right.
You don't want the parent to become the enemy. You don't want the parent or the family to have extra attention. So if, a teen may come and reach out to you and may need some assistance talking about some issues at home, and we listen and we support and we love, but we're careful.
Paul, we could talk a long time about the role of parents in youth ministry, because we have got to gain their trust as well. I've been saying this for years and years, and Paul has said it too, that when you deal with a teenager, it's like dealing with an alcoholic. You deal with a whole family and not just a teenager. And so we've got to gain their trust, and those parents have to know the boundaries as well. They need to know what they can expect out of us as a youth minister, that we're trying to help them. We're trying to aid them in getting their teen to heaven. That's what it's all about. And so we have to have boundaries, and we have to share those boundaries with the parents as we do with the teens. And once we get the trust of the parents, it makes the boundaries a whole lot easier to deal with.
And you're dead on talking about that. We could talk about that for a long time. So why don't you write that down? Let's put that down as one of the webinars that we're going to do, is how to include parents in ministry.
Okay.
I think that'll be a great webinar for us. Secondly, is to ask. We need to make sure that we're checking on teens, that we're asking about what's going on, that, we're not prying, but we are challenging. We ask about their walk. We ask about their Bible study. We ask about their prayer life. We ask about any challenges that they tend to be facing. We ask if they've got anything that they would love to have prayers about. Sometimes we might ask, do you have any questions, anything you're facing right now that you want to know what the Bible says about that? It's one thing to say, hey, what's going on in your life right now? But it's another thing to say, what's going on that maybe you'd like a biblical perspective on? I've been amazed at the number of kids who won't open up about an issue, but the minute you say, would you like to know what the Bible says about something that's going on in your life? Sometimes they feel like that's a safe place for some reason.
There are two questions that I really like to ask, especially, and I don't know why, especially young teens, is how have you grown spiritually in the last month? And how do you plan to grow spiritually in the next month? If you say like 6 months or a year, ask that kind of question, you can just get out there somewhere. But if you ask how they've grown spiritually in the last month, if you take the first month of school and say, how did you grow spiritually during the first month of school? And how do you plan to grow the next month of school? I think you'll get some pretty interesting answers on that.
I love that. I was just thinking about a big shift that's taken place probably in the last 10 years, that people seem to be more and more spiritual at a younger age. When I was coming up, when I was in youth ministry, starting at really about age 18, I don't remember asking very much. It's embarrassing, but I don't remember asking and challenging teens very much. I tried to be their friend.
Right.
I tried to be their buddy because I was really their age,
Right.
but I see a lot of our youth interns today and a lot of young youth leaders who really are challenging teens spiritually. So good job, guys. And if you're not, don't be afraid to do that. Don't be afraid to ask. That's one of the things that we've really got to be doing to make a difference in the lives of teens.
And I will say that that is one of the positive things about technology, because I know some of our children at church that are learning a lot of Bible on the internet. Their parents are showing them these different Bible stories, and they're hearing the Bible stories on the internet. So that's one of the positives of technology.
Yeah, I love that. And every kid today can have the Bible right there on their
Mm-hmm.
phone,
Mm-hmm.
look things up, be challenged, etc. So that is a huge positive. And number three is to assess. To assess the walk. Regularly, we have retreats or we have one-day events where we pull back and we want to help teens discover where they are in their walk, or maybe even as a youth leader, we're trying to assess where they are.
Right. And one of the one of the sidebars for that assessing teens, we've got to know them. We have to know where they are before we can assess where they are. We have to know them pretty well. So that means what? We have to spend a lot of time with them. We have to spend time with them, whether it's on the phone or person to person, or however we do that. But we kind of have to know where they are spiritually, so that we can help them with that assessment.
Yeah, it's one thing to know that a kid's attending class. It's another thing to know whether they've really got that connection. And you're going to find that out, at least you should know right now. The kids who attended a lot of things during the summer. With our youth group, we had a meeting called Sticky Faith. And it was amazing the number of events that were like volleyball based. Tons of kids showed up. Sticky Faith was just a handful of kids that showed up, but it was always those leaders. It was always those leaders who wanted to come in and wanted to be part of those discussions. So it was pretty easy to assess where they were
Mm-hmm.
because we knew that they were leaders and we knew that they were going to be taking part in things. Cool. All right. Well, you mentioned spending time with kids and making sure that we know them in order to assess where they are. So our final section here, CPR, the C stands for call. This goes back to the boundaries. Got to be careful when we're calling. We want to make sure that parents know that we're going to call. But if you call and talk and check on a kid, it can really make a tremendous difference.
And we probably need to bring this to everyone's attention. That this is old school.
Yeah.
People don't call much anymore. It's mostly text, tweet, Facebook, and all those kind of things. The way Messenger, the way we stay in touch with people. And calling is not one of those things we normally do to teens anymore. Now, I think it's important at the first of the year that if we do this kind of thing, which I think is really, really healthy and good, that we get letters out to the parents of the kids saying that we'll be calling your teens, to let the parents know that we'll be calling, and it just won't come out of the blue for them. Let the kids know that we'll be calling. And that's important, because I know we do all the emailing and text and all that, but kids still like to get phone calls and talk.
Yeah, they do. And some, aren't ever going to answer, and others will answer every time.
Right.
But if once word gets out and they start hearing that you're making phone calls, it'll make a big, big difference. And again, make sure that the parents know that you'll be calling. Secondly, and this is old school too, is postcards. They love to get stuff in the mail.
They do, and so do adults, as long as it doesn't have a little window on the envelope. We all love to get mail. We love to get Christmas cards. We love to get birthday cards or thank you notes from our family that says thank you for having a retreat for us. So we as youth ministers love to get those. Well, kids love those things too, and especially if you could catch somebody doing something good. Maybe a guest came to church one Sunday, and one of your teens went to the door and welcomed them and asked them to sit with them. If you sit down and write a teen a card and tell them that you noticed that, man, that just goes a long way with them.
I love that. So get something in the mail, guys. We may even work on some templates to put together, make it pretty easy for you to put something in. I like the look of this one that I pulled off of the interwebs. Getting something like that in the mail is going to make a difference, just a quick little impact. Something that is handwritten on the opposite side, makes all the difference in the world. Because when you get something that thoughtful, it makes the teen know that they were on your mind. It makes a big difference.
And a lot of times the teens will share that with their parents. And there's another good connection point with parents, because they know parents may not think about it as, well, he took the time to go get a card. He took the time to sit down and write it. I mean, the teens, they may not think about those things. Well, parents will think,
Mm.
he took time to do that, or she took time to do that. And so that's important that parents know that as well.
And the great thing about a postcard is that it's open. The parent can read the
Mm-hmm.
note, and you got to know the parent's situation to make sure that they're not going to get a scripture postcard in the mail and go berserk. But if you know it's appropriate, it's going to fit the entire family as far as their belief system and structure, then it's open. If your kid was to get a letter in the mail and it's hidden and they don't know what's inside of it, they're going to wonder about it. They're going to want to see it. But a postcard's open and it's easy to use.
And another safety net for this too, for this type ministry of postcards, is to mail 5 or 6 at one time to different kids. So you have not just picked out one teen to send to, and the parents will say, "Well, my child got a card from a youth minister. Is that kind of unusual?" Well, no, 5 or 6 other kids got one the same day.
Love that. Super smart. And then finally, reach out. Usually with groups, that you have a group setting that you meet. If you were to go and visit several kids at lunch at their school, that'd be pretty easy. These are the types of situations where you go and make personal visits, but you never want that to be one-on-one. You always want there to be a group involved. I got tickled with our intern this summer. He was texting guys asking them to go to lunch. And if he texted one guy, they never responded to him. But if he would text a group of guys, they would get back with him because they knew a whole group was going. And there's always more comfort in a group. So I thought that was kind of interesting the way that ended up playing out. And they had a bunch of great lunches this summer and devotionals this summer, but always go for the group and never for the one-on-one.
And another reach out idea too, and this again is one of the old school things that we don't do very often. And a lot of this is determined by the size of your group as well. But if it's where you could drop by and visit in the home with the parents there, of course, the parents would need to be there if you go by. And you might even call ahead and let the parents know that you're coming, or ask if it's okay for you to come. Just to, the way we used to, youth ministry 30 years ago, you could say you can go into a teen's bedroom and look around on the walls and tell what kind of teen they are.
Yeah.
You don't get the opportunity to do that anymore because our society has changed so much. So we have to jump through a lot of hoops to be able to go to a home and visit a teen. But if it's where you can, jump through the hoop and do it.
I love that. That type of personal contact, they're always going to remember. Years ago, I remember a kid that was one of those kids, if I can put it this way, just really didn't fit into the group real well. Always kind of a little bit of an outsider, always said the awkward thing, always did the thing that made everybody kind of think, oh man, this guy may be dangerous. And I remember on one of the trips, he wanted to go and take a hike. And I didn't want to go with him, and nobody wanted to go with him because they thought somebody might disappear out there in the woods. We were scared. Well, I agreed reluctantly to go hiking and then forgot about it. Never thought about it again. But years later, when he was going to college, he got up and he said, I want to thank the leaders of this church. I want to thank X, Y, and Z, and I want to thank Paul for that hike. I'd forgotten about the hike. He didn't remember any of my Bible lessons.
Yep.
None of my devotionals, but he remembered that time spent together.
Yep. I can remember, and I've shared this with you many times, Paul, but I can, one of my friends in high school, and you've shared this with us too, about your mother when you came to breakfast every morning, that the Bible was open every morning, and what an impact that made. You don't know if she read it or was about to, if she ever read it at all, but you just knew the Bible was open.
Right.
And that's the way my friend was. His mother read the Bible to him every night, all the way till he left home to go into the military. And so, we as ministers forget about those things, but they remember.
Right. Love that. Well, guys, that is the conclusion of today's webinar. Next month, we'll be back with a new topic. One of those is going to be including parents in your ministries. One is how to teach a great Bible class. That'll actually be a series. And also upcoming is some 101 counseling techniques from Al to be able to help you out. Make sure that you're inside regularly, teenlifeministries.com, using those resources. We've got hundreds of Bible lessons, thousands of articles, dozens and dozens of of personal growth elements for you, things you can copy and paste, send out to your parents, things to copy and paste and send out to teens. There are just so many things to make sure that as your kids go back to school, that they stay on fire, they stay focused on the Lord.
Good night, Paul.
Hey, all right, Al, be blessed.